The crystal chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with energy as 12 alien species gathered for their monthly assessment meeting. Towering spires of translucent material caught the light of 3 distant suns, casting rainbow patterns across the assembled delegates. High Counselor Zefix, a tall being with silver skin and 4 arms, gestured toward the massive holographic display floating in the center of the room. The image showed a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored entities," Zefix announced, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "Today we discuss the primitives of Sol 3, these humans." A ripple of amusement passed through the chamber. Ambassador Krell, whose species resembled massive walking trees, rustled his bark-like skin in what could only be described as laughter. The bipedal mammals? Krell's voice creaked like old wood. What could they possibly offer the galaxy? They haven't even achieved faster than light travel. Zefix nodded, pulling up data streams that floated around the holographic Earth. Indeed, our scouts have been monitoring their communications for 50 of their years. They seem to spend most of their time fighting among themselves and creating fiction. Fiction? The question came from Delegate Vass, a gelatinous being whose form shifted constantly between different shapes. "You mean they make up stories that aren't real?" "Precisely," Zefix replied, clearly finding this concept absurd. "They create elaborate tales about space battles, alien invasions, and something they call heroes. Most amusing is their concept of humanity fang, yeah. Apparently they imagine themselves as some sort of galactic force to be reckoned with." The chamber erupted in what passed for laughter among 12 different species. Clicking, whistling, rumbling, and various other sounds of amusement filled the air. Admiral Thorak, a reptilian being covered in scales that shifted from green to gold, hissed his amusement. "They actually believe they could stand against us? These creatures who still use chemical propulsion to leave their own atmosphere? It gets better," Zefix continued, clearly enjoying the presentation. "They have myths about something called human determination and never giving up. They seem to think these abstract concepts would matter in real warfare." Another wave of laughter passed through the council. "Show them the war footage," suggested Counselor Mix, whose cybernetic enhancements gleamed in the prismatic light. "Let's see how their determination stacks up against actual combat data." The holographic display shifted to show recordings from various conflicts across the galaxy. Massive space battles played out before them, fleets of ships engaging in combat with weapons that could crack planets and shields that could withstand the heat of stars. "This is real warfare," Zefix explained. "The Zelkan-Morgov War lasted 300 years and consumed entire solar systems. The humans' largest conflict involved metal projectiles and primitive explosives." "Pathetic," Admiral Thorak spat. But then something unexpected happened. The youngest member of the council, Aria 7, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix, spoke up. Her voice chimed like bells. "Has anyone actually visited Earth directly, not just observed from a distance?" The laughter died down. Zefix's 4 arms gestured dismissively. "Why waste the resources? Our long-range sensors tell us everything we need to know. They're a pre-spaceflight civilization. Case closed." Aria 7's form flickered with what might have been uncertainty, but their mathematical models, some of their theoretical physics, it's actually quite sophisticated for such a young species. "Theory means nothing without application," Counselor Mix stated, his mechanical voice brooking no argument. "They can theorize about faster-than-light travel all they want. Until they build a ship that can achieve it, they're irrelevant." High Counselor Zefix raised one of his 4 hands. "The matter is settled. Earth remains under observation status only. No contact, no interference, no resources allocated. They're simply too primitive to matter." As the council moved on to other business, none of them noticed the small fluctuation in their deep space monitoring network. A brief pulse of energy that their sensors categorized as cosmic background radiation. They had no way of knowing that, at that exact moment in a hidden facility beneath the mountains of Colorado, Dr. Sarah Chen was looking at her team with tears of joy in her eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen, she announced to the assembled scientists and military personnel. The Alcubierre drive test was successful. We just achieved faster-than-light travel. The room erupted in cheers, but Dr. Chen held up her hand for silence. This isn't just about the technology. Our deep space monitoring stations have been picking up structured signals for months. We're not alone, and we need to be ready. General Marcus Stone, a grizzled veteran with steel-gray hair and scars that told stories of countless battles, stepped forward. Doctor, how long before we can build a proper fleet? 6 months for the first prototype warship. Maybe a year for a full squadron. Dr. Chen's voice was steady, but her eyes held a fire that would have made the Galactic Council very nervous. But General, there's something else. The signals we've been monitoring, they're not trying to hide from us. They just assume we can't detect them. What does that mean? It means they think we're primitives. They're about to learn they made a very dangerous mistake. Outside the hidden facility, stars twinkled in the clear mountain air. Unknown to the people of Earth, those same stars were home to 12 species who had just dismissed humanity as irrelevant. They were about to discover why that was the biggest mistake in galactic history. Chapter 2. The Human Response, 6. Months later, the shipyards floating in the shadow of Luna hummed with activity that would have been impossible to imagine just a year before. Massive construction frames held vessels that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about human capability. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, humanity's first faster-than-light warship. The name was fitting. Just as the mythological Prometheus had stolen fire from the gods, humanity was about to steal supremacy from beings who thought themselves divine. "Status report," she called out to her bridge crew. "All systems green, Captain," replied Commander James Park, her first officer. His fingers danced across holographic controls that materialized from pure energy. "The Alcubierre drive is stable, weapon systems are fully charged, and the crew is ready." Through the transparent aluminum viewport, Elena could see the rest of humanity's first deep space fleet. 12 ships, each one a masterpiece of engineering that combined human ingenuity with technologies reverse-engineered from intercepted alien transmissions. "Ma'am," called out Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell from the communications station, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command." "Put it through." The image of Admiral Rebecca Harrison materialized in the center of the bridge. Her silver hair and stern expression commanded instant respect from everyone present. "Captain Vasquez, you are authorized to proceed with Operation Mythbreaker. The reconnaissance data you requested has been uploaded to your systems." Elena nodded. "Thank you, Admiral. Any final orders?" "Just one. Show them that human myths have teeth." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in focused silence. Elena turned to her crew. Men and women from every continent of Earth, united by a purpose that transcended old boundaries. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, her voice carrying across not just her ship but to every vessel in the fleet through their quantum communications network. "For too long, we've wondered if we were alone in the universe. Now we know we're not. We also know that those who share the stars with us think we're nothing more than amusing primitives." She paused, looking each of her officers in the eye. "They're about to learn why underestimating humanity is a fatal mistake. Commander Park, signal the fleet. All ships, prepare for jump." Across 12 bridges, human crews worked with the precision of a symphony orchestra. These weren't just soldiers and scientists. They were representatives of a species that had clawed its way up from caves to the stars through sheer determination. "Jump coordinates locked in," reported Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez from the navigation station. "Target, Proxima Centauri system, coordinates matching the Galactic Council's primary monitoring station." "All ships report ready, Captain," Commander Park announced. Elena took a deep breath. Humanity was about to announce itself to the galaxy, and she wanted to make sure the introduction was memorable. "Engage the Alcubierre drive." Space twisted around the human fleet like reality was being folded by invisible hands. Stars stretched into lines, then compressed into points of light that pulsed with otherworldly energy. The sensation was indescribable, like being turned inside out while simultaneously being compressed into a single point and expanded to fill the universe. Then, in an instant that lasted forever, and no time at all, they arrived. The Proxima Centauri system spread out before them in all its alien glory. 3 planets orbited the red dwarf star, and hanging in space between the second and third worlds was a structure that defied human understanding of engineering. The Galactic Council monitoring station was a crystalline flower of impossible complexity. Petals of pure energy extended for kilometers in every direction, each one pulsing with data streams that carried information across the galaxy at speeds that made light seem sluggish. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Mitchell. "It's beautiful." "It's also heavily armed," added Commander Park, reading the tactical displays. "I'm detecting energy signatures that could vaporize our entire fleet." Elena smiled, an expression that would have terrified the station's occupants if they could have seen it. "That's assuming they know we're here. Helm, take us to within optimal weapons range, but keep us in the sensor shadow of the second planet." "Aye, Captain." As the human fleet maneuvered into position, none of them noticed the small probe that detached from the alien station. It was barely larger than a baseball, but it contained sensors more sophisticated than anything in humanity's arsenal. The probe began scanning the human ships with instruments designed to analyze threats from species that had mastered interstellar warfare for millennia. What it found should have been impossible. The ships were brand new, so new that some of their systems still showed manufacturing residue. But the technology integrated into their design was a hybrid of human innovation and principles that the probe's databases said should take centuries to develop. The probe's artificial intelligence processed this information and reached a conclusion that would have made its creators very uncomfortable. These humans had gone from primitive to advanced in less than one of their years. That was impossible, according to every model of technological development the galaxy had ever observed. The probe began transmitting its findings back to the monitoring station, but before the signal could reach its destination, something extraordinary happened. Every human ship suddenly appeared on the alien sensors at once, as if they had materialized from nothing. But they hadn't just appeared. They had announced themselves with a synchronized transmission that was being broadcast on every frequency the Galactic Council used for official communications. Captain Vasquez's voice rang across the cosmos with crystal clarity. "Attention, Galactic Council. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earth ship Prometheus, speaking on behalf of humanity. You have been observing our world for 50 years while dismissing us as primitive and irrelevant. You found our myths amusing. You laughed at our determination. You thought our stories about heroes and courage were nothing but fiction." The transmission paused, and in that silence, 12 human warships powered up weapon systems that should not have existed. "We're here to show you that human myths are real, and we're about to make some new ones." Chapter 3. The Galactic Council's Panic. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in record time. The crystal chamber that had witnessed countless debates and decisions over millennia had never seen its members in such a state of panic. High Counselor Zephyx stood before the holographic display, his forearms trembling as data streams flowed around him. The image showed 12 sleek vessels arranged in perfect formation around the Proxima monitoring station, ships that, according to every database the Council possessed, should not exist. "This is impossible," Admiral Thorak hissed, his reptilian scales shifting to deep red, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. 6 months ago they were still using chemical rockets. How do they have faster-than-light capability, Legate? Vas, the gelatinous being, had compressed himself into an almost solid sphere, a defensive posture his species took when facing existential threats. "The energy readings from their weapon systems, they're off the charts. Some of those signatures we don't even recognize." "And their formation," added Counselor Mix, his cybernetic enhancements working overtime to process the tactical data. "It's not random. They've positioned themselves to create overlapping fields of fire that could devastate our station while minimizing their own exposure. This isn't luck. It's military genius." Aria 7, the energy being who had questioned the Council's dismissal of humanity, flickered with what could only be described as vindication. I tried to warn you that their theoretical physics was sophisticated. You didn't listen. Warn us? Zephyx spun toward her, his silver skin flushing with anger. You said they were interesting, not that they were a threat. Because I didn't think they were a threat to us specifically. Aria 7 replied, her chiming voice now carrying an edge of reproach. I thought they were a threat to our assumptions. There's a difference, and we've just learned what it is. The holographic display suddenly flared with new activity. The human ships were moving, demonstrating maneuvers that showcased technology the Council thought was centuries beyond Earth's capability. Look at their engine signatures, breathed Ambassador Krell, his tree-like form rustling with anxiety. They're not using fusion drives or even antimatter. That's space-folding technology. How did they develop space-folding technology? They didn't, came a new voice from the chamber's entrance. Station Commander Ilex, a being that resembled a walking collection of geometric shapes, materialized in the doorway. His form was flickering, a sign of severe distress among his species. What do you mean? Zephyx demanded. I mean they stole it, Ilex replied, his form stabilizing as he approached the Council. My technical teams have been analyzing their ships. The core technology is theirs. Ingenious applications of physics that we never considered. But the advanced components, they're based on our own designs. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of energy that kept the station operational. Impossible, Admiral Thorak whispered. Our communications are encrypted with quantum-level security. Nothing short of a species-wide intelligence network could break those codes. Unless, Aria 7 said quietly, they never needed to break the codes. What if they've been listening to us for 50 years and simply learned to understand our languages, our mathematics, our engineering principles? The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. They had been observing humanity while assuming humans were too primitive to observe them back. But what if humans had been studying their observers all along? Counselor Zephyx, came the voice of the station's communications officer through the chamber's speakers. We're receiving another transmission from the human fleet. Put it through. Captain Vasquez's image appeared in the center of the chamber, and for the first time in their long careers, the members of the Galactic Council found themselves looking at a representative of a species they had completely underestimated. Members of the Galactic Council, she began, her voice calm and professional. I am Captain Elena Vasquez. I speak for Earth and all of humanity. We know you've been watching us. We know you think we're primitive. We know you've dismissed us as irrelevant. She paused, and her expression hardened. We also know that you've been sharing information about our planet with 12 other species, analyzing our defenses and debating whether or not we're worth conquering when the time comes. Did you really think we couldn't detect your surveillance networks? The Council members looked at each other, in shock. Their intelligence operations had been compromised from the beginning. Here's what's going to happen, Captain Vasquez continued. You're going to update your databases. Humanity is no longer a pre-spaceflight civilization. We are now a spacefaring species with faster-than-light capability, advanced weapon systems, and the will to use them if necessary. Admiral Thorak leaned forward. Are you threatening the Galactic Council? Captain Vasquez smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both friendly and terrifying. Admiral, I'm assuming you can access our historical databases by now. Look up the Battle of Thermopylae. Look up D-Day. Look up every time in human history when someone with superior numbers thought they could intimidate us into submission. Leaned back in her command chair. We don't make threats, Admiral. We make promises. And here's our promise to you. Humanity will be treated as an equal member of the galactic community, or humanity will demonstrate why our myths about determination and courage have kept us alive on a world that's tried to kill us for millions of years. The transmission ended, leaving the Council in stunned silence. Finally, Delegate Vass spoke up, his gelatinous form rippling with what might have been nervous laughter. Did a representative of a species that achieved spaceflight 6 months ago just give us an ultimatum? Yes, Aria 7 replied, her energy form brightening with what could only be described as admiration. And based on everything we've seen so far, we should probably take it seriously. High Counselor Zefix's forearms moved in complex patterns as he processed the situation. For the first time in his long career, he was facing a species that had turned the tables on the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. "What do we know about their current military capability?" he asked. Station Commander Ilex's geometric form shifted as he consulted his data streams. 12 ships, but they're not just warships. Our sensors detect manufacturing capabilities, mining equipment, and what appears to be colonization infrastructure. They didn't just build a fleet. They built the foundation for an empire. In 6 months, Counselor Mix added, his mechanical voice carrying undertones of disbelief. They went from chemical rockets to interstellar empire building in 6 months. Ambassador, Krell rustled his bark-like skin. The question isn't what they've built. The question is what they're planning to build next. As if summoned by his words, proximity alarms began blaring throughout the station. New contacts were appearing on sensors throughout the system, not ships, but something else entirely. "What is that?" Zefix demanded. The holographic display shifted to show massive geometric structures materializing near the outer planets. They were clearly artificial, but their purpose was unclear. Energy signatures suggest manufacturing facilities, Ilex reported, his form flickering with disbelief. They're building infrastructure in our system right now. But that's impossible, Admiral Thorak protested. You can't just set up industrial operations in someone else's solar system. Arya Seven's chiming laughter filled the chamber. Why not? We never told them they couldn't. We never established diplomatic relations. We never even acknowledged their existence. According to interstellar law, this system was unclaimed space. The reality of the situation began to dawn on the council members. In their arrogance, they had created the perfect legal framework for humanity to claim territory throughout the galaxy. How many systems have they visited? Zefix asked quietly. The answer, when it came, would haunt the council for years to come. All of them, Station Commander Ilex replied. Every monitoring station, every outpost, every inhabited system within 50 light-years of Earth. They've been everywhere we have, and they got there first. In the span of 6 months, humanity had gone from irrelevant to inevitable, and the galaxy was about to learn what that meant. Chapter 4. The New Galactic Order. 3 weeks after humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council, the Crystal Chamber had been transformed into something its builders never intended. A courtroom where an entire galactic civilization was on trial. High Counselor Zefix stood before a joint session that included not just the original 12 council members, but representatives from every spacefaring species within 100 light-years of Earth. The chamber had been expanded using technology that bent space itself, but even with room for thousands of delegates, the atmosphere felt claustrophobic. The reason for their discomfort floated serenely in the center of the chamber. Captain Elena Vasquez had been joined by representatives from every major nation on Earth, but it was clear she remained their primary spokesperson. Her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the barely contained panic of the alien delegates surrounding her. Let me make sure I understand the situation correctly, she said, consulting a tablet that somehow interfaced perfectly with the Council's most advanced computer systems. For the past 50 years, the Galactic Council has been observing Earth while maintaining what you call non-interference protocols. That is correct, Zefix replied, his forearms moving in what his species considered a gesture of reasoned diplomacy. During this time, you monitored our communications, analyzed our military capabilities, studied our social structures, and compiled detailed intelligence reports about our planet's resources and strategic value. Standard procedure for all pre-spaceflight civilizations, Admiral Thorak added, apparently thinking this explanation would be helpful. Captain Vasquez nodded thoughtfully. I see. And during these 50 years of non-interference, did you ever consider informing us that we weren't alone in the universe? That would have constituted interference, Counselor Mix stated, his mechanical voice carrying what he probably thought was moral authority. Interesting. Captain Vasquez made a note on her tablet. So when the Zelkan Empire was planning to strip mine the asteroid belt in our solar system, and you convinced them to wait until we achieved spaceflight to avoid cultural contamination, that was non-interference? The chamber fell silent. Several delegates who hadn't been briefed on that particular incident began looking very uncomfortable. How did you? Delegate Vass began, then stopped himself. Know about that? Captain Vasquez smiled. The same way. We knew about the Morgoth science expedition that wanted to study our deep ocean thermal vents. The same way we knew about the Krillian Trade Consortium that was mapping our system for future exploitation. You see, when you've been observing someone for 50 years, you tend to leave quite a trail. She stood up, and something in her posture made every alien in the chamber instinctively recognize the presence of a predator. But here's what I find really interesting, she continued. In all your observations, in all your intelligence gathering, in all your debates about our species, did any of you ever consider that we might be doing the same thing to you? Ambassador Krell's bark-like skin rustled with what might have been nervous laughter. You didn't have the technology to what? To listen to radio transmissions that you broadcast across the galaxy without encryption because you assumed we were too primitive to understand them? To observe your ships with telescopes that you never bothered to shield because you thought we couldn't see them? To intercept data streams that you transmitted through our own solar system because you considered it empty space? Captain Vasquez activated her tablet, and the chamber's holographic display filled with images that made several delegates gasp in recognition. We have 50 years of observations too. We know which of your species are predators and which are prey. We know your military capabilities, your economic structures, your political systems, and your weaknesses. We know which civilizations are expansionist and which are isolationist. We know who your allies are, who your enemies are, and who can't be trusted. The images shifted to show detailed schematics of alien technologies, star charts marking the locations of every known civilization, and tactical analyses that demonstrated an understanding of galactic politics that should have taken centuries to develop. Most importantly, she continued, we know that you've spent 50 years treating us like a resource to be exploited, rather than a people to be respected. And that changes everything. Aria 7, the energy being who had tried to warn the council, flickered with what could only be described as fascination. What do you want from us? It was the first time anyone had asked humanity what they actually wanted, rather than debating what humanity was capable of. Captain Vasquez's expression softened slightly. What we've always wanted. To explore the universe. To learn about other species, to contribute to the galactic community. But we want to do it as equals, not as subjects or resources. You want membership in the Galactic Council? High Counselor Zephyx asked. No, came the reply, and the simplicity of it sent shockwaves through the chamber. We want partnership with individual species who are willing to treat us with respect. The Galactic Council has demonstrated that it views younger civilizations as problems to be managed rather than partners to be welcomed. She gestured toward the display, which now showed human installations throughout the galaxy. In the past 3 weeks, we've established diplomatic contact with 47 species, directly. Turns out a lot of civilizations are tired of being told what they can and can't do by a council they never asked to join. The implications of this statement hit the assembled delegates like a physical force. Humanity hadn't just achieved spaceflight, they had begun dismantling the existing power structure of the galaxy. This is impossible, Admiral Thorak hissed. You can't just restructure galactic civilization. Captain Vasquez looked at him with an expression that was almost pitying. Admiral, with respect, you've been thinking about this all wrong. You assume that because you've been in charge for a long time, you get to stay in charge forever. But civilizations rise and fall. Empires come and go. The only constant in the universe is change. She turned back to address the full assembly. Humanity isn't here to destroy the Galactic Council or conquer your territories. We're here to offer an alternative for species that want to explore the universe as partners rather than subjects, for civilizations that believe cooperation is stronger than domination, for anyone who thinks that the galaxy is big enough for all of us to thrive. And if we refuse? Counselor Mix asked. Captain Vasquez's smile returned, and once again it managed to be both friendly and absolutely terrifying. Then you'll discover why every human myth is about the little guy who fights impossible odds and wins anyway. You'll learn why our stories celebrate heroes who never give up, soldiers who never surrender, and civilizations that get stronger every time someone tries to break them. She began walking toward the chamber's exit, followed by the other human representatives. The galaxy is changing whether you want it to or not. You can be part of that change or you can be left behind by it, but you can't stop it. As the humans departed, the chamber erupted in chaos. Some delegates were shouting, others were trying to establish communication with their home systems, and a few were quietly beginning to compose messages to the human embassy that had somehow already been established in the neutral zone. High Counselor Zefix remained standing in the center of the chaos, staring at the data streams that continued to flow around the chamber. The information was clear. In less than a month, humanity had fundamentally altered the balance of power in the galaxy. And they had done it not through conquest or destruction, but by offering something the Galactic Council never had. Genuine partnership between equals. For the first time in his long career, Zefix wondered if maybe, just maybe, the humans had been right all along about their myths of courage, determination, and the power of the underdog. The galaxy was about to find out. Epilogue. 6 months later. The observation deck of the UES New Horizon offered a view that would have been impossible to imagine just 1 year earlier. Through the transparent aluminum viewport, Captain Elena Vasquez could see representatives from over 200 species working together on humanity's first joint galactic research station. The station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering. Human structural design provided the framework, while alien technologies contributed everything from artificial gravity generators to translation matrices that allowed beings of radically different biologies to communicate in real time. Status report, Commander, Elena said to her new first officer. Not another human, but Keth 9, a crystalline being whose species had been one of the first to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. All systems operating within normal parameters, Captain, Keth 9 replied, his voice carrying the harmonic overtones that made his species' communication so distinctive. The joint research projects are proceeding ahead of schedule, and we've received 17 new requests for partnership agreements this week alone. Elena nodded, but her attention was focused on the smaller display showing a familiar crystal chamber. The Galactic Council was in session, and for the first time in its history, it was debating a motion to dissolve itself. The irony wasn't lost on her. By refusing to acknowledge humanity as equals, the Council had inadvertently created the catalyst for its own transformation. Captain, came a voice from the communication station. Incoming transmission from the Terran Defense Command. Put it through. Admiral Rebecca Harrison's image materialized on the bridge's main display. Behind her, Elena could see the orbital shipyards that now surrounded Earth like a ring of industrial diamonds. Captain Vasquez, I have news from the Sol system. The Galactic Council has just transmitted a formal request for Earth to consider joining their organization. Elena couldn't help but laugh. After everything that's happened, they still don't understand, do they? Apparently not, Admiral Harrison replied. They're offering us a full seat on the Council, with voting rights equal to the founding species. What did you tell them? That Earth's policy hasn't changed. We're interested in partnerships, not hierarchies. If they want to restructure themselves as a confederation of equals, we'll consider it. But we're not interested in joining another empire, even if they're offering to make us part of the ruling class. Elena looked out at the research station, where beings from across the galaxy were working together on projects that would benefit everyone. It was exactly what humanity had always dreamed of finding among the stars. Any word from our deep space exploration fleets? That's the other reason I'm calling. The expedition to the Andromeda Contact Zone has made first contact with 3 new civilizations. All of them are interested in joining the partnership network. Elena smiled. The galaxy kept getting bigger, and humanity kept finding new friends among the stars. There's one more thing, Admiral Harrison continued. We've received a message from a species calling themselves the predecessors. Apparently, They've been watching our expansion with interest. The predecessors? I don't think I'm familiar with them. Neither were any of our galactic partners. According to the message, they're an ancient civilization that withdrew from galactic affairs millions of years ago. They say they're impressed with humanity's approach to diplomacy and want to meet with us. Elena felt a chill of excitement mixed with apprehension. If there were civilizations out there so advanced that even the Galactic Council didn't know about them, it meant the universe was even more complex and wonderful than they had imagined. Set up the meeting, she decided, but make sure our entire fleet is ready. Just because our approach to diplomacy has worked so far doesn't mean it will work with everyone. Understood, Captain. Harrison out. As the transmission ended, Elena found herself thinking about the journey that had brought them here. A year ago, humanity had been alone on a small blue planet, dreaming about the stars and wondering if anyone else was out there. Now they were citizens of a galaxy that was rapidly transforming itself around principles of cooperation and mutual respect. They had allies among dozens of species, partners in exploration and research, and the respect of civilizations that had initially dismissed them as primitive. But perhaps most importantly, they had proven that the myths they told themselves, stories about courage in the face of impossible odds, about standing up to bullies, about never giving up hope, weren't just myths at all. They were prophecies. Commander Keth 9, she said, prepare the fleet for deep space deployment. If we're going to meet with these predecessors, I want to make sure we make the right impression. Aye, Captain. What kind of impression did you have in mind? Elena looked out at the research station one more time, then at the stars beyond, stars that no longer seemed impossibly distant, but like destinations waiting to be explored. The same impression we've been making since we first left Earth, she replied. That humanity keeps its promises, protects its friends, and never backs down from a challenge. The universe is big enough for all of us, but it's not big enough for anyone to push us around. As the UES New Horizon prepared to join the fleet gathering for humanity's next great adventure, a message was transmitted across the galaxy on frequencies that every spacefaring civilization monitored. It was brief, but it carried the weight of a species' determination. This is Earth to all points. Humanity is still here, still exploring, still making new friends among the stars. To those who would be our partners, welcome to the adventure. To those who would be our enemies, you have been warned. The universe belongs to all of us, and we intend to make sure it stays that way. The message was heard by hundreds of species across thousands of worlds. Most who heard it smiled in whatever way their biology allowed. But in a crystal chamber that was rapidly emptying as its member species reconsidered their allegiances, a few beings who had once dismissed humanity as primitive felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. The humans had been right about their myths, and the galaxy would never be the same. End of story.